Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks again for coming. Welcome to our international program taster for the Bachelor of Arts and Science. It's great to have you here, and we're so appreciative of wherever you are in the world and whatever time zone. Firstly, I wish that we could have come seen you in person and done some of these sessions for you in person, but either way, it's nice that we get to chat, and I hope this helps in your decision making, gives a bit of relief, and I know is what a very stressful time to kind of decide where to go to university. So you've been invited here because you either have an offer to the University of Guelph or you're waiting for your offer. So if you do have any questions about that, I'm here to help as well. So my name is Amy. I am the Assistant Manager of International Recruitment here at Guelph. I run the international recruitment team. So in a perfect world, I get the joy and privilege of flying around the world to meet all of you. Me and my team get given different parts of the world. We all travel to meet you all. We do lovely school visits, meet your parents, meet your counselors at high school. We unfortunately have been doing that all virtually this year, so I hope that you've seen either myself or one of my team members around the world virtually at some point this year and got some of your questions answered. I can see a few more of you coming in, so welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here. I know this could be a funny time zone for some of you, so I really appreciate it. All right, so our event today is a taster event. So we are going to have a bit of a taster from a Bachelor of Arts and Science perspective. We have a Dr. Donald Bruce who's going to do a bit of a taster from his perspective. Then we have a lovely student here from Nigeria who's going to speak a bit about her time in the Bachelor of Arts and Science program as well. If you want to, if you could pop in the chat function where you're from around the world, I find it always nice to see where students come from. So if you want to pop that in, if not, I don't know if we have a chat. I don't think we do. Sorry about that, never mind. But we do have a Q&A. So there should be a Q&A function at the bottom. So if you want to click on that, if you do have any questions as we go around, if there are any things you want to say. Oh, there is a chat, my apologies. There you go. Thank you, from India. So if you want to pop in what country you're from, I think it's always nice to see where everyone's from. But the Q&A, so if you do have any questions throughout the whole session, feel free to pop them in there. We're most likely going to answer them verbally on the camera as well. So just wait for, at the end, we're going to answer all the questions, and I'm sure some of them will get answered as we go around. So if you have any questions, don't pop those in the chat. Make sure they go in the Q&A because that's how we're going to go through all the questions there. As you'll notice, this is a recorded session. So this will be recorded and sent out to you probably within the next 48 hours when you're done. So we'll have the recording over to you in your inbox with the email that we have on campus. Your microphone and camera will not turn on. This is a webinar, so there's no option for you guys to have your microphone or webinar or camera on. So don't worry about anyone could hear you or anything like that. So sit back, relax. Perfect. So that's it from me. There's nothing else I kind of have on my docket here, but just wanted to say welcome. I think our numbers have evened out here. Oh, we've got lots of students from India, South Africa, Ghana. I'm in Toronto, excellent. I'm sorry that we're currently in a lockdown. Kuwait, Colombia, Jamaica, there's some excellent students here. So thanks so much for coming. All right, with that, I think I'm gonna pass it over to the fantastic Dr. Donald Bruce, who is a professor in our School of Languages and Literature and also the Bachelor of Arts and Science program coordinator. So over to you, Dr. Bruce. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Morning here, but wherever you are, welcome to our presentation today. I'm glad you're here to find out something about the BAS program. First, just a couple words about myself. As Amy said, I come from languages and literatures. I'm a French professor by origin, but I actually came to University of Guelph as Dean of Arts way back in 2016. So I was Dean of Arts for 11 years. And during that time, the BAS program was one of the programs under me as Dean of Arts. And over the years, I have found the program increasingly a fascinating program in our mix of programs in the College of Arts. In fact, in the last years, I was dean, and now in the years since I've left that job in 2017, I've been working full-time in the BAS program, and I run it as the director coordinator of the program. So today what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the program, give an idea of what you would be getting into and why you would want to do this if you were to join us in the BAS program here at the University of Guelph. So just a little background on the program. The program this year has been in operation 20 years, started in 2001, and we'd actually planned to have a celebration this year for the 20th anniversary of the program, but for obvious reasons, that wasn't possible. So it looks like we may be having a celebration next year in 2022. Several thousand students have graduated the program over those 20 years. And in the program, we have about 440 students. That's pretty much steady state. It fluctuates a little bit, but it's held at around 400, 450 for many years now. And that's stretched over the 4 years. There are about 150 students who enter the program in first year every year, and then about 75 who graduate every year. So we try to keep the program to kind of that size, 400 to 500, because it allows the students to get to know each other a lot better within the program, since they come from all sorts of different areas of arts and science. Now, the question which you might be posing yourself, and maybe your parents might be asking you, is why choose the BAS? Well, there's some very significant reasons for doing that. One reason is that the BAS is kind of a unique program. It was built to be an interdisciplinary program from the ground up when it was first designed 20 years ago. That means it's different from disciplinary programs. Most programs are disciplinary. So what does that mean? That means if you study English or chemistry or food science or sociology, you're mostly going to focus on that program, on that subject area. You may have taken other subject areas to some limited extent, but your main focus is going to be on that subject area, and that's fine. That's okay, because you can focus on what you're doing. That's sort of more the traditional form of studying in a university. It's very concentrated and it limits a lot of your options. An interdisciplinary program like the BAS actually aims at connecting different areas of knowledge, specifically between the areas of arts, which we understand as humanities, social sciences, and fine arts, and then the areas of science, which generally speaking are biological, life sciences, and physical sciences. So the very motto of the program is we make connections. And the aim of the program is to bring together different forms of knowledge acquisition, different forms of problem solving, different ways of understanding the world in order to use those techniques and that knowledge to solve problems, to understand the world. Now, along with this interdisciplinarity, there's another major reason for choosing the BAS program, and that's its flexibility. Because most programs are very focused on their own subject area, the choices that students have in courses is fairly limited. Your major area is going to eat up most of your courses, with maybe a minor and a few other electives, if you're lucky. Some programs are very, very restrictive. On the other hand, the BAS was built to be flexible. It was built to be flexible to allow students to put together combinations of arts and science, and there are many, we'll talk about that in a minute, in order to allow them to build their own programs with specializations that they wanted to put together. And so we find in the program that there will be students with all sorts of different specializations, and their common element will be the core of the BAS courses. So for a lot of students, that interdisciplinarity aspect, which allows them to study different things that they've been interested in all the way along, and the flexibility aspect, which allows them to mix and match different courses and areas of interest as they wish, rather than follow a more prescribed course, set of courses, is something that really attracts them. So let's move on a little bit and take a look at some more specific reasons as to why you might choose the BAS. Most of the significant problems we face in the world these days are problems which require an interdisciplinary approach, meaning they need knowledge from science and tech, and they need knowledge from human, political, cultural dimensions. And in fact, we discover that when we look at these problems, we often solve the science and tech aspects of the problems a lot more easily than we solve the human, social, political aspects of the problems, because that's just the way we are as people. We're complex, and sometimes it takes us a long time to come to resolution in order to agree on a course of action. Let's take a look at some examples of that. I've got 5 for you. The first one, climate change. That's probably the biggest problem we are all facing everywhere in the world. It truly is an existential problem, and science has demonstrated to us that it's real, it's there. Science has a number of ways of mitigating that problem, and in the long run, solving it. That we know, that we understand. But on the other hand, we know throughout the world that for political reasons, ideological reasons, economic reasons, national reasons, it's hard to come to some sort of agreement on how we can achieve the goals that science is set for us to achieve in order to avoid disaster. So that's a key problem which requires different forms of knowledge to arrive at a solution. Another one would be COVID-19. That's what we're all living through right now. The science which led to the creation of vaccines was developed fairly quickly. That doesn't mean that it was invented out of nowhere. The science which is behind the mRNA vaccines and the vector vaccines has been around for a long time. And once the genome was transmitted from the Chinese to scientists around the world, they came up with vaccines fairly quickly because the science was very well known. And we know that these vaccines are effective. In fact, I'm going today for my first vaccination, COVID vaccination, later this afternoon. But we know that at the same time, that's become a hot potato political subject, whether it be masks, whether it be the fact that we have restrictions on our movement, the fact that we can't gather anymore, that we have lockdowns, all those sorts of things has caused a lot of problems in the world, be they economic problems, social problems, and so forth. So again, that's another key example where different forms of knowledge are necessary to solve a problem. Another one would be creating a sustainable economy. We also know that we, human beings, are consuming resources faster than the supply of resources we have. And particularly the richer nations are consuming a lot of resources. We in Canada here are really consuming resources at the rate of about 1.5 Earths rather than the 1 Earth that we have. And so this situation is not tenable in the long run. So we know what the scientific answers to these questions are, but we have to come and find a political and economic and social accord in order to solve that problem. Another one is this, diversity and equality. Now you might think that that's just a social problem, but no, actually, a lot of scientific work has been done in economics and sociology to demonstrate that societies that are diverse and societies where equality is practiced as a basic principle are societies which are generally better off, they're more socially stable, and they enjoy higher levels of prosperity and standards of living. So again, in order to achieve that goal, we have to understand what the scientific issues are, and we have to understand what the political and social issues are. And one last one, there are lots more we could do. We live in a world where technology and science pervades everything that we do. And certainly the growth of the internet is a fine example of that. The fact that we are communicating by the internet right now shows that. And along with that has come the phenomenon that we all gladly render up information about ourselves into the internet. Data is collected about us, and that data is then turned around and used for all sorts of purposes, mostly to sell us things. And that's what's come to be known as surveillance capitalism. It's a new form of capitalism based on the fact that large companies and Amazon, Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of these large internet entities collect vast amounts of information about us and then turn it around, information they collected through surveillance, which we allow them to do, and use that to sell us things. So those are all areas where the technology and the science and the human and social issues need to be worked on together in order to find solutions. So the BAS program is certainly a program that has been designed to address those issues, which are very clearly modern issues that we find in the world today. Another reason, before we go on to the program itself, to think about this is that the BAS program kind of fills that gap between those two cultures, the science and tech side, and then the humanities, social science, art side, and links them together. It fills that gap and gives students the tools they need to navigate between those two different areas. Okay, if we go to the next slide. So what does the program actually look like? This is a schematic of the program. And the program is actually pretty easy to figure out. There is a core of BAS courses. That's what you see there in the orange. And those BAS courses are the courses which you take within the BAS program. They're not disciplinary courses, rather they're particular courses designed for the BAS. And then you would have your two specializations. One specialization, which would be in the art side, and you would choose that and do a foundation and then develop it over the years of the program, and one on the science side. So the first year or two, you're building the foundation, and then in subsequent years, you're building on that. And then on top of that, you have electives. So you have 3 credits in electives, that's 6 courses. And you can use those any way you want to strengthen one of your specializations, to start a new area, just to follow areas of interest. That's up to you. So you see, there's a lot of flexibility, that characteristic that I mentioned to you at the beginning. And then there's a lot of interdisciplinarity that goes to building the structure of the course. So that's generally the progression that you would follow over the 4 years that you do the course. Now, if we move on to the ASCII courses now, the next one. Those courses, which make up the structure of the program, are kind of, they're broken out into 3 groupings. The first 2 years are what we call the foundation years, years 1 and 2. Those are required courses. Those prepare all the students coming into the program for further study in the BAS. The 3rd year is what we call the application experiential year. And in that year, there are a number of courses to choose from, which allow students to apply some of the things that they've learned in sort of more practical and experiential settings. And then the 4th year is the research and capstone year, where in fact what we try to do is allow students to develop in a research mode some of the things that they've been doing. So what would you find in these courses when you go through them? Our student who is with us now this year in his broadcast has done courses in 1st and 2nd year, so she'll be able to talk to you about that directly, about her own experience. In the very first entry course, which is Society Inquiry 1, which I do actually, we start out by taking a look at the nature of science. What is science? And science as a cultural practice and phenomenon is a lot more complicated than what many people might think. So we try to localize and figure out exactly what the characteristics of that are. And then through a number of sort of case studies, we take a look at major scientific developments in the mostly in the 20th century, and look at how they are embedded in social, political, and historical dimensions. Science doesn't exist out there all on its own. It's a human practice, and it evolves and develops within that framework. So we take a look, for example, at the development of the discovery of the structure of DNA and everything that's grown out of that. We take a look at our understanding of the structure of the atom, what's come out of that, all the way up to the Manhattan Project and development of the atomic bomb, or to Chernobyl and the great disaster that happened in the 80s and the meltdown of the nuclear plant. And then we also take a look at the growth of environmentalism, which really kind of grew out of the vast expansion of chemistry into everyday life. Almost everything we touch, everything around us, has been in some way touched by chemistry. And so environmentalism grew out of that really in the 1960s. So in 1120, things shift a bit, and that's where students in particular study how to tell the difference between fact and fiction. How are claims of science, how are they to be understood as truthful? And how are we to become better consumers of information? Because as I said a moment ago, one of the major issues facing us these days is we're in a flood of information. How do we sort out what's true from what is not true? And then in 2050, uses of knowledge, in that course, that studies a bit more clearly the ways in which knowledge is transferred and mobilized from sort of academic setting into the non-academic world. It studies also how trust can be created in science, what distinguishes expert knowledge from other types of knowledge. And when experts disagree, how do we figure out who's telling the truth, who's right? So the first 2 years really concentrate on those areas. When you get into 3rd year, then you have some different courses, and those courses are different in nature, but they all seek to involve students in some sort of hands-on activity where they can implement knowledge. In the ASCII 3000 Arts and Science Community Project course, their students can work on community projects under the supervision of the professor. They're usually maybe 6 to 8 different projects, and students organize in groups to work on one of them. And those are projects which are related to the community, and students develop the skills of transferring knowledge from the academic setting to the community setting. So those might be projects related to mental health, environment, youth support, elder care, support for people in poverty, animal care, or other university-related projects. They vary every year. So it's a lot of hands-on experience. 3100, which is currently called case studies, is actually science communication. I do that one also. And there we take a look at how there's a lot of hands-on work in writing, oral, and visual communication in ways which are used to transmit and to convey the complex information of science, like around COVID, like around the climate crisis, to the public in ways that non-specialists can understand. So it's a fairly intense amount of writing and production of video materials and so forth. And that's another hands-on sort of course in the 3rd year. 3200 is an older course we brought back, and that's in the area of public health. We haven't completely defined it yet. It will be on this year, but it will also deal with issues in public health. And then finally, 3700 is like 4700 in the 4th year, and these are independent studies courses. So this permits a student to develop with a professor of his or her choice, and get a professor to work with you, and to develop a research project in that course. So that's a one-on-one kind of independent studies course, which students can also take. When we get into the 4th year, change gears a bit more, and we find some other types of courses. So we try to put a bit more emphasis on research and capstone experience. And by that we mean trying to pull together the threads of methodologies and conceptual understanding and hands-on practices that students have already developed in the preceding 3 years. So 4010 is a research course which focuses on developing a longer written paper. So students who really want to get into a subject and write a longer research paper, and then they also do a poster presentation in public in order to present their research project. And they're really fascinating. I've been watching these things for years now. Students do a great job of doing these public presentations of their research projects. That's 4010. Then 4020 and 4030 are courses where we have different topics. And those different topics vary considerably. And we'll take a look at some of those different topics over the last years in a moment. But they allow students to, within the framework of that course, develop research knowledge around a particular subject. And then again, there's the possibility of the 4700, which is again an independent research project. So you can see how from one year to the next, there's structure in the program and things shift. Okay, if we go to the next slide. These are examples of past topics in ASCII 4020 and 4030. In ASCII, that's the code for the courses, arts, science. And these are examples of some courses we've had over the last few years. Science and gender. We know that, in fact, it's very often difficult for women to get into science and to make their way. That's changed a lot, but still that's a significant topic. Implications of Darwinism. There are all sorts of implications to Darwinism as it impacts us in different areas of our life. And we know that in some areas of the world, Darwinism is still even contentious. Bacteria and infections through the ages. Scientific racism. We know that science has been used in the past in order to justify racism. Science in film and literature, that's one that I do, and that has to do with the representation of science in film and in literature. This year I did it completely on film, and so that takes you all the way from documentary films to science fiction, and also to films kind of in the middle, which give very good but fictional representations of science. And given that most people these days learn about science after high school, not by studying it, but through films and maybe through news reports and books, films become a major vehicle by which knowledge of science is conveyed to the public, correctly or incorrectly. Science and politics of exercise, the whole story around that one. That was a new one a year ago. Chronic diseases, scientific and social dimensions. That too was a new one we brought in a year ago. Digital culture, another new one, was on last year. It'll be running again this year. What is the impact of digital culture on our way of understanding, on the relationships in the community, in the acquisition and the formulation of knowledge? Digital culture pervades everything these days. Nutrition and health, and then evidence and accountability. So all of these different possibilities exist for the 40, 20, and 30 research courses. They change each year. Okay, let's go to our next slide. So what are the learning outcomes of the BAS program? So by learning outcomes, we mean what we hope you get out of this. By the time you get to the end of the fourth year, what sorts of things have changed in you? How has the program developed you and made you a different person, we hope, by the time you leave the program than you were when you entered the program? And so what we find here are a number of learning outcomes. And these are critical thinking. Probably one of the key things that any employer is going to want to see in you, and one of the key things that you want to exercise as a citizen, no matter where you live, you want to be a critical thinker, meaning you want to be able to analyze complex evidence and perspectives and figure out what they are and what they're saying. Historical contextualization. You want to be able to understand knowledge in relation to history. Knowledge doesn't happen free of history. Knowledge happens embedded in human historical activity. And so, oh, excuse me, a drink of tea here. And so if we want to understand how knowledge develops throughout history, we have to be able to understand it in its historical context. Sociocultural awareness. Our societies are increasingly diverse. They're made up of people of different colors, religions, ethnic backgrounds, languages. And so we have to understand what that means, the complexity of cultural diversity, in order to understand our societies and to use science within those societies. To work independently and in teams, the types of work you will be doing throughout the program, some of it will be independent, essays, projects you do on your own, or some of it will be team related, where you're working with a team and you're learning how to time manage, project manage in order to complete a project. Working with different forms of inquiry. So as I said earlier, one of the advantages of the program, its interdisciplinary nature, is that it encourages students to use different forms of inquiry in order to analyze and solve problems. So those forms of inquiry might come from physical sciences, or they might come from sociology. They might come from art history, or then they might come from biological sciences. Depends on the problem. But what counts here is the ability to bring different perspectives to solving different problems. Communication skills. Certainly anybody who leaves a university with a degree in his or her pocket should have well-developed communication skills. And that means written skills and increasingly verbal and visual skills in order to convey information, to convince people about the reason that a vaccine should be used, or that climate change is a reality and we have to act in order to counter it. We also try to develop as an outcome a problem-solving mentality. That means to develop in students the ability to find creative solutions to problems. And certainly, again, any employer who's going to consider employing you will want you to be a problem solver, will want you to be able to come up with creative solutions. And finally, then, knowledge mobilization. We work within a university atmosphere. However, one of the duties of the university is to mobilize knowledge and to bring it to uses in the public. That is one of our key goals. Okay, slide 6, please. So what are some career possibilities? Some career possibilities are these. And these are all students I've worked with. I've known them. So these are real cases. Genetics and family relations. One student went off to do an MSc in genetic counseling, she's now in second year medical studies. Another student who did history and environmental science, clerked for a couple of years for a lawyer, decided he wanted to do law. He's now in second-year law studies. Zoology and English, that's another student who worked closely with me on an international project. And she worked in environmental studies for a little while, decided she really liked science communication, and has since completed a master's degree in science communication and is now working as a science journalist. Neuroscience and psychology, another student whom I know who's finishing this year, she's going off to occupational therapy. Chemistry and art history, another student I worked with several years ago, and she was just interested in those two different areas, didn't really think of getting into art restoration, but decided to get into that as she moved along. And is now an art restorer, actually, in a museum here in Canada. English and ecology, another student I worked with, and she went off to do a PhD in English, but she did it in environmental literature, completed that degree a year ago, and is now teaching at Canadian University. Computer science and psychology, and that student went off to do game addiction here in the research for game addiction here in the province of Ontario. And the last one, biochemistry and CJPP, which stands for criminal justice and public policy, and that student went off and got into forensics and works for the police service now. So all of these are examples of things you can do. And because the combinations are so numerous that you can pull together from your sciences and your arts areas, there are 31 areas to choose from on the arts side and 17 on the science side, that the number of possibilities is really quite endless. So we have students together from all these different areas, and their core connector is the ASCII courses that they take. So I hope that's given you, and I'll stop now, a bit of an overview of this and what you can do in the future when you go off and you leave us and maybe go to graduate school, go into professions, work for government, work for private industry. There are many possibilities. And if you have questions, this is the person to ask. This is Sarah Bradley. She's our BAS program counselor, and she can be communicated with at bas@uguelph.ca. There's also the web address for the program. Many of you have probably consulted that already, but if you have a lot of specific questions you want to ask, you can ask Sarah Bradley and she'll be glad to help you. I'm done.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And I think as a recruiter, whenever we get to the point in our presentation to talk about arts and science, I think we realize what a unique program it is that not a lot of other universities offer at all. So it's such a unique way of blending such two can be very different topics. So there are a lot of students, and I think a lot of us all, we can't quite figure out which way we want to go. So this beautiful being able to kind of blend both sides of that is so great. And when you line up all the graduates and see what different career paths they go on as well. So in some ways they're all connected, but it's in other ways you can go so many different routes and they all have their own paths to take. And it can be quite wonderful to see all that's the difference as well. Which leads me to my next, our lovely student. Let me just make sure I can tick over here. Perfect. So Amazua is actually in Nigeria right now. She is finishing up her second year of the Bachelor of Arts and Science program. So I'm thrilled to kind of hear her insight as to what she's enjoyed about the program, what her two courses are. So again, if you have any questions, feel free. I can see a few of them in there. So just pop any questions you have into that Q&A box. And both Bruce, myself, and Amazua will help answer those questions at the end. But Amazua, I'm going to pass it over to you just to tell us a bit about your experience in the program. Oh, you're on mute, my love.
Sorry.
We've all done it, yeah.
Hi, good morning. My name is Amazua. I'm a second-year student at the University of Guelph. The Bachelor of Arts and Science, as you know, my specializations are actually currently undeclared. Well, I'm actually declaring it very, very soon, and I'm going to be choosing neuroscience and psychology. I'm choosing neuroscience and psychology because I actually really enjoy studying how like the nervous system works, why people behave the way they do, and things like that. My experience in the BAS program has actually been very amazing. I really like the BAS program because of the ASCII courses, that's the arts and science courses. They're like, I think Professor Bruce said earlier on, they are like core ASCII courses you have to take when you're in the program. And I really enjoy the courses because they actually help me. They've really helped me in my communication skills. They've helped me in my presentation skills. They've helped me with critical thinking, with group work. I took an ASCII course a while ago. That's ASCII Z1120. It's a critical thinking course, and it's really helped me so much because it enabled me to think outside the box, and it enabled me to be able to analyze situations properly, and also not just rely on my previous views. Sorry. We have different courses in the arts and science program. You said it earlier on, we have the science core courses, the art core courses, and the courses under your specializations. Right now, I'm working. The courses I take are currently towards my specialization. That's neuroscience and psychology. So I really enjoy taking psychology courses. So interesting because you get to see so many cool things. Currently, I'm taking psychology 2330. It talks about it's so interesting. We talk about classical conditioning, behaviors learning. It's a very interesting course, and you get to learn so many things. I also enjoy taking sociology courses. I've taken sociology 11. I've taken sociology 1100, and currently I'm taking sociology 2070. It's a course about deviance, and you just see why people behave the way they do. You see how people how the society labels people as deviant and stuff like that. I also in the BAS program, apart from your ASCII courses, the core science and arts courses, and the courses towards your specialization, you get to take electives too. And I've taken Spanish as an elective, and it has I took Spanish twice, and it has really helped me because I can make simple conversations in Spanish and things like that. The arts and science programs are really incredible because you get to study arts and science at the same time, and you get to use both knowledge. You get to use the knowledge from arts, and you get to use the knowledge from science and bring it as one. And I'm sure as time goes on and you get into the program, you're really going to enjoy it because it's a really wonderful program. And there are so many wonderful people in arts and science because you get to share different ideas with different people, and you just get to see things from different points of view, and you actually start to think in ways you've actually not thought before. And why did I choose the University of Guelph? One reason I chose the University of Guelph is because of the academic excellence. Is one of the top comprehensive research schools in Canada, and that was one reason I drew me to the school. Another reason I chose the University of Guelph is because of the campus, really. Because I could not come for the tours. I could not come for the tours in person. So I just had to search up the school online, and I just saw the different things about the school, and it actually really drew me to the school, the campus, the aesthetics of the campus, the facilities, the school is actually really welcoming, and I am actually really glad I chose the University of Guelph because immediately I stepped into the school, I felt as if I was part of the community, and it's actually been really wonderful. I actually resumed late in my first year because I had issues with my visa and stuff like that. But when I resumed, I had to catch up on so many things. Even Professor Bruce was my ASCII teacher in my first semester, and they really helped me to catch up on things because I was a little bit behind, and they really helped me to catch up on stuff. I could go to the professors and tell them I missed this, I missed that, and they really told me how to catch up, and it just really helped me. And I'm so glad I chose this university because I just feel as if I'm part of a community, and I feel like I belong in a community. And like you said earlier on, I know arts and science can be a little bit confusing when you're trying to plan your degree, because you're trying to plan your degree, and it can be a little bit confusing. But we have our counselor. Anytime I have an issue, most of the time I just go to my counselor. She helps me plan my degree. She maps my degree out for me, and she's really wonderful. And I think you're really going to enjoy the course, and you're also going to enjoy Guelph as a whole because it's a really wonderful place to be. Thank you. That's all.
Perfect. Thank you so much. No, and I think it's great to hear all that, to say, you know, it's a beautiful blend of kind of finding both sides of it and to learn a bit about what you want to study. So I'm really thankful, and I'm glad you love Guelph. Of course, it's a fantastic place to land for international students. And you mentioned the campus. We do have some live virtual tours going on right now. So if you go to our international admissions webpage, at the top, there's a tour link. So if you click on there, there's some virtual tours of the campus that are going on. So if you want to take a look at what the campus looks like, I know you can't come here in person right now, but you can do these beautiful virtual tours and take a look around to all the buildings and whatnot. Perfect. So we do have a few questions that have come in. So I'll pose them to both of you if anyone has any insight in them. A lot of the first load of questions are really focusing on, how do I pick my programs? So is it advised to have an idea of our favored specializations going into the foundation year? When do I have to declare how to choose which programs I take from the Bachelor of Arts side and the Bachelor of Science side?
Okay, I can tell you something about that. First of all, for all of these sorts of questions, Sarah Bradley is the person to turn to. She's the fount of all knowledge. So if you have any questions, ask Sarah and she'll help you there. She's there to guide you through. And as always said, it can sometimes be a little bit complex because you're dealing with two different areas, one in arts and one in science, and then you're asking courses. So you've got to kind of juggle all these things and make them fit together. So that's where the counselor is really, really helpful. As to when you declare, as always said, you don't have to actually declare until your second year. If you know before, all the better. But if not, you've got until your second year to choose your areas of specialization, as she just told you.
Perfect, that's great. And I think, what programs would you take if you did enter undeclared? So what do you do for those first 2 years if you are an undeclared? Or Amazwa, you're perfect. What did you study those first year when you were undeclared, those core classes?
Actually, like I said, when I entered the school, I went to meet the program counselor and she actually advised me on some things. Initially, I wanted to go for biology and Spanish. So that's why I started taking like Spanish courses and stuff like that, and biological courses. But along the line, I actually discovered I didn't want to do that anymore because it was not what I wanted. So I went and I spoke with the counselor and I told her I think I'm going to neuroscience and psychology. And she said, okay. But I was actually lucky because some of the courses are like, so I just used like some of the other courses as my science core courses and my art core courses and my electives. Mm-hmm. Then I just started working towards my arts and my neuroscience and psychology specialization. In case you don't know what to take, I advise you probably take you probably deal with your ASCII courses and your science core courses and your art core courses and probably your electives. And along the line, you might find something that interests you.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think it's great. It's one of the few programs that you can come in and kind of explore a bit when you first arrive. So,
and in fact, sometimes it's harder for students. In a way, it's almost easier if everything's mapped out for you. And every single year, you know exactly what you have to do. Whereas this is built to give students some freedom to decide where they want to go.
There's beauty and there's challenges to it for sure. I think sometimes that people choose something like computing, it's very structured to say these is exactly what you have to do to finish. And some people really enjoy that, but this has a nice addition to it of exactly exploring, and all those grads go in very different ways from it. So perfect. Well, here's a question that came in prior to on our submission form. It said, how do first years cope with all the study load, or even second or third years once you have to balance, dare I say, two sides of your brain at the same time? Is there ways that as a student and a professor, you kind of help students be able to cope with their study load?
Who wants to start on that? So Amazwa frozen?
Oh no, we lost Amazwa. Oh no, she does look a bit frozen.
Sure.
Oh, we'll give her a minute, but.
Okay, so she comes back in. There are a lot. One thing about Guelph, which is kind of unique. I came here, as I say, about 15 years ago from a larger university in Canada, which I quite liked. It was quite good there. But one thing that attracted me, a couple of things attracted me. She's back. A couple of things attracted me were one, the campus and the life there itself. And then also the BS program, because it's going to be one of my programs. There are a lot of supports for students. The library, for example, has a lot of support. they have a writing center, they have a study skills group, they have all sorts of mechanisms for supporting students. And one of the nice things about the Guelph campus is that certainly it's a campus where students have a lot of social interactions. There are many, many different clubs and groups and different ways of engaging it and meeting people. So it's not hard to build up a group of friends who can assist you, with whom you can study. And at the same time, there are a lot of resources in the university to assist you in getting through the hard workload and so forth.
No, I agree. There's so much out there, and especially for international students as well. I know there's lots of support and the ability to meet other international students that are maybe going through the same changes as yourself in terms of outside of school, which we know always affects how one studies, is all the outside factors as well. So there's a lot of support here on campus. Amazwa, how do you balance kind of all your work and studying, especially I know you've been online for the last semester?
Actually, online school has been a little bit difficult, but then I just try to like create like a to-do list and like just try to like work in order of like priority and things like that. And actually just try, even like times when I'm not motivated, I just try to remind myself why I'm actually in school and just try to push myself. And so sometimes you just have to like probably just create like a to-do list and just like get work done in like in the order they are due. And I think it actually helps when you like make a to-do list to know this is what I want to do today, this is what I want to do today, and it actually really helps. Also, like when semester resumes, I think you should not wait for like your work to pile up. You should like as soon as you start the semester, you should start reading and you should start like working towards your work and things like that. It really helps, and it helps to avoid like piled up schoolwork.
Oh yeah, try not to get too much piled up. I think we all have a procrastinator somewhere inside us, so we need to try our best to overcome those feelings to begin with. Well, it's a perfect question. We had someone ask, will the fall be online or in person? So I'll give my best answer as I can at that, is that we are aiming, yes, to have a lot of classes be in person for this fall. I don't think everything's going to be possible. We'll have to see closer to the date, but right now they are really pushing to have as many classes as we can to be in person in the fall. There might be some additional online components that if a student can't make it in, we hopefully will be able to help international students specifically. I will at this point plug in something that I'm going to talk about again at the end, but we are having an immigration and quarantine webinar on May 19th. So all your questions about whether we're going to be online or offline, we're going to try and target May 19th to give you a huge amount of information. So we have people from our immigration team that will be there to help answer questions about your study permit, your work permit, any time to get into the country, what documents you need. We'll have the person who's the lead of the quarantine plan to explain a bit of how international students, if there is still a quarantine, how they can best do that and get to yourself on campus, like Amazwa, who's hopefully going to come here in July. We will have someone from housing there as well to talk to you about if you put a housing deposit down, are you going to be able to stay in housing or not? And lastly, we'll have someone from scheduling. So the person from scheduling is going to talk about classes and when you enroll in classes, if they'll be online or offline. So a huge amount of that information is going to come on May 19th. So keep an eye out on your inboxes. I'm going to send you a huge big invite and that'll be a great webinar with lots and lots of information on that. I know we have a few more minutes and we have a few quick questions here. So I have someone asked, if I'm currently in a Bachelor of Arts program, can I change to a Bachelor of Arts in Science? So on an admissions perspective, yes, if you are currently in an arts program, we will have to reevaluate you because you have to have some science components to get into the program for your first year. I'm not sure once you're here, if you're able to change, that would be something you'd have to speak with your program counselor to see if you can add those courses on to make it into a Bachelor of Arts and Science. Dr. Bruce, I don't know if you've had any experience of students joining the program a bit later in their years.
Oh, yes, we do. And that happens all the time. We often get, for example, students who go into biochemistry. And so they get into a straight science program and they decide that it's almost too concentrated for them. It's more science than they wanted to do. And so they want to combine, let's say, the science side with another interest they have, English history, art history, whatever it may happen to be. We often get those sorts of transfer students. And so those transfer students who transfer into the program They come in at different points in the program. We have to make some adaptations so that they can catch up on, for example, the ASCII courses, which they haven't taken before. But yes, that is a very frequent phenomenon. We find that very often.
Perfect. And we have a question here about if someone goes on to study the biological sciences, do they have to take physics and other math-based courses? So what's the base for the biological science?
In all those separate disciplines, we don't govern them. They run their own shop, so to speak. And so I know that within biological sciences, they do require some basic physics and chemistry and things like that. But of course, that's pretty normal in science because those are fundamental scientific disciplines. And so in order to determine what you would actually need, you have to speak to the counselors, let's say in biological sciences, and they'll tell you what you need in order to complete and move along in that program, because that's under their governance, it's not ours.
Perfect, yeah. There is a question here saying, are you studying while working? So Amazwa, have you ever worked on campus? Or I can talk to you a bit about working on campus. Have you ever worked while studying? Oh, you're on mute, honey. Oh.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I used to work at Walmart last semester, but I'm actually probably going to stop soon because it's actually, for me, it's actually kind of hard trying to balance schoolwork and like also working. So I'm probably going to quit. But if you think you can do it, then I think you can. But there's like a limited amount of hours you can work as an international student while studying. You can work for more than 20 hours in a week if you're an international student while studying. But I think if you think you can cope with studying and working, then I think you can work.
Yeah, so there is actually a great program called the Work Study Program, and this is encouraged for international students as well. So you can enter the program when you arrive here on campus. And we, for example, in our department in international recruitment, we hire 7 work study students every semester. So at the beginning of the semester, we interview a group of students. We then hire 7 around, and we look at your schedule for the semester and say, these are when your courses are, and we actually work around them. So you can come to our department, do some work for us. It's not necessarily in your field of study because you're helping us with recruitment and tasks within our office, but you're allowed to do 20 hours per week while you're studying. So a lot of students do 15, 12 hours. They come for 2 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Wednesday, and we kind of structure it around your schedule as well. So work study program is great. There's a lot of options on campus, and it's really flexible for students, especially international students, to join that program. Perfect. So are the questions about how to register for sections and selecting your subjects in the Web Advisor, will those be answered? Those will be answered on our webinar that we're doing on May 19th. The person in scheduling will help you answer for that. But Amazwa or Dr. Bruce, do you have any idea of how they kind of select their subjects? Again, I'm assuming they work with a program counselor, and they can select them the semester in advance, or do they have to select quite far in advance?
Well, but once you have to watch it. Some courses have restrictive entry, and so if you choose some disciplines will reserve entry to their majors only, and then you get to enter into the course. You have to become a member of the course. So that depends. You have to check with each one. Now, again, the person to speak to would be Sarah Bradley, because she knows all these different programs, and she could advise you on how to do that. So once you've been admitted into the program and you're looking to making up your course outline, Sarah is the one to talk to. She has a whole sheet worked out, which I think is even on the on our website, where you can map out all of your courses over a period of time. So she will assist you with that, because some areas have restrictions, some don't. They're sequencing, sometimes they're hidden prerequisites. So there are a lot of things that you have to know about. And as an outsider to the university, you probably wouldn't know that. So asking Sarah would be a really good idea.
Perfect. I've thrown her details back up there on the screen as well, if you want to take a snapshot of those. I only have 2 questions left, and the first one is, what is the fee structure for Bachelor of Arts and Sciences for years 1, 2, 3, and 4? So our fees actually just got announced for this year, so they should be being sent out to you right now. So you will get your fees for this year. Those will include any of your scholarships that you've got or anything like that. So if you do have any questions, I'm actually going to throw up the thank you screen right now, just so you can see our email here. INTAPPS is INTAPS. So if you do have any questions about your fees or your structure that came out, please, please, please send us an email there. For years 2, 3, and 4, I think they've capped it at a certain percentage that it won't go up more than that. I think it's between 3 and 4%. So you're not suddenly going to have your fees increased in years 3 by 10% or anything like that. Once you're in your cohort, it won't increase too much every year. So you'll get told that when your fees come. Your fees get raised on your account when you sign up for your classes. So when you get your ability to sign up for your classes in the summer, each time you sign up for a class, a fee then gets added to your account. So you pay it off as those go through. Are you able to pay fees by yourself or your parents support you? I'm not sure if that question's for me or for Amazwa, but I think we all have our own way of paying our fees. So yes, there's co-op available. There's ability for you to do these work study. There's a lot of jobs on campus as well. So we really try and help international students get jobs here on campus. So if it's not work study that you want to do, we're known as the food campus. So we have 7 different dining halls across campus. So there's lots of jobs and ability for students to earn money while they're here on campus as well. So if you have any questions about that, we have a huge amount of different services here that can help students when they arrive. You'll get introduced to the student experience team once you get here and at start orientation. So there's a huge orientation program that happens right in September when you first arrive. That's alongside all the Canadian students as well. So you get tons of information about jobs on campus, how to read your schedule, how to get to classes. Just before that, there's something called Start International. So it's just a 1-day program only for international students. So this is a great way for you to firstly meet other international students. And we always recommend Start International. But it's also ways for you to kind of learn things that maybe the Canadian students would inherently know, like where's the grocery store? You know, how do I, get some jobs on campus and pay my fees? How do I open a bank account when I get here? So there's lots of support in that Start International when you first get here to help with those things as well. All right, I'm kind of running out of time here, so I'll ask this one last question, which I think I know the answer to, is can we choose our professors? I think you can for those later ones. I put 3,700. You've mentioned that you'd be able to pick who you work with at that point, but I don't think up until then you have the ability to select professors necessarily. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Your fate is sealed. You get what you get. And so different people, certainly in the ASCII courses, there are just a few of us who work in the ASCII program. Whereas if you were in a bigger area, like let's say biochemistry or something like that, where they have thousands and thousands of students, you will probably run into a wider range of professors. That's pretty typical, but no, you don't get to choose us, except when you do an independent study course. And that's when you would go out, you develop a project, you approach a professor, get that person to work with you, we approve the project, and then you work individually with that professor. So there are a number of students who do that because they have a topic they want to develop, a particular area they want to study, and it's of course an interdisciplinary type of framework, but that's certainly quite possible both in 3rd and 4th year.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to everyone. This has been a great session. I can see students from all over the world coming in here. We've got students from multiple different countries asking some great questions. So I just want to end with a few plugs of further information if you do have any further questions. So UniBuddy is actually a platform that we use for international. You'll see it when you go to the international admissions webpage. It kind of has a little pop-up and it said, would you like to chat with a current student? UniBuddy is a fantastic place if you just want to get quick information from student to student. So somebody like myself, and I'm sorry, Dr. Bruce has probably gone to university many, many years ago, that you don't want to hear our stories necessarily. You want to hear from people like Amazwa and how they've experienced University of Guelph. So you can ask them any question that you would like. So there's lots of different things you can bring up. I know we do, we kind of quiz our UniBuddies. What did they ask this week? Some people ask, how cold is it here? What's the weather like? How do the buses work? What are people like on campus? Where should I live in housing? So it's a quick app that you can either download on your phone or on your desktop and just kind of text back and forth with other students. So you can pick the students either by region. So if you want to speak to someone from Nigeria, or if you want to speak to someone in the BAS program, for example, you can select it by different programs. So it's a great way for you to have those quick chat back and forth. Some of us staff members are also on UniBuddy, so if you don't want to send us a full email or have a phone call, you just want to ask us a quick question, feel free to go on the staff tab, and UniBuddy, you can have a little text back and forth with us as well. We love UniBuddy and more than happy to answer any questions. So We're open all the time, so even if you have any questions, pop onto anybody. Lastly is that immigration webinar. So if you do want to come, you'll get an invitation to join that. That's going to have a huge amount of information in terms of immigration, the quarantine program. We're going to have housing and scheduling there as well. And we're really hoping to either get the assistant vice president to talk to us about fall 2021 and how they're going to do online courses or any announcements that they have. So I think that's going to be a really informative webinar, especially for international students. And very last, if you have any questions regarding your admission, so if there's any documents you're missing or anything like that, you would have been informed, and we're waiting to kind of get those documents back. If you need anything, if you've had any issues in your country to get exam results or anything like that, please pop us an email and we can extend some of those deadlines in certain circumstances. So our email there is INTAPPS, so it's INTAPPS. So pop any questions you have over there. If you have any other questions, please reach out. We do have more taster sessions coming up this week. If you have any friends or anyone who's saying, where's the rest of all the other programs? So we have arts happening tomorrow, then business on Wednesday, and biomedical on Thursday. In about 2 weeks, I think we're going to do engineering, computing, and psychology will be our last taster sessions as well. So keep an eye out for those that are coming. And hopefully we look forward to having a further chat with you. So I really hope this was helpful. Thank you very much to Dr. Bruce and to Amazwa for their insights. I really appreciate your time. And I hope you guys have the rest of your day, a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.